The cosmic cartographer vessel Wayfinder drifted silently through the outer reaches of the Hellion cluster. Its mapping arrays extended like delicate antennae tasting the void. Orion Tannhäuser stood before the observation dome, hands clasped behind his back, watching the dance of stellar bodies with practiced eyes. His dark hair, streaked with silver despite his relative youth, curled slightly at his neck as he tilted his head, listening. "There it is again," he murmured, more to himself than to the ship's systems. "Enhance audio receptors, Sector 490. "Audio enhancement engaged," responded the ship's interface. "No identifiable signals detected within conventional parameters." Orion frowned, pressing his palm against the cool transparasteel of the dome. "It's there, something," singing. For 3 cycles now, he'd caught fragments of what could only be described as a melody, haunting, alien, yet undeniably musical, ghosting through the background radiation of space. The Wayfinder's sophisticated equipment couldn't isolate it, but Orion's ears, genetically modified for his profession to detect subtle cosmic rhythms, picked it up clearly. "Log anomaly," he said finally. "Mark coordinates for further investigation." As the vessel continued its mapping mission, Orion found himself drawn repeatedly to the observation dome, straining to hear that distant song. It pulled at something deep within him, a chord of recognition he couldn't place. Across vast distances, through the crushing pressures of an ocean world called Velspar, Nesrin floated in her crystalline prison. Her cerulean skin, marked with phosphorescent patterns that spiraled across her shoulders and down her arms, pulsed gently with the rhythm of her song, a song no one had heard for decades. The abyssal spire that housed her rose from the ocean floor like a shard of forgotten memory. Once, it had been a temple to her people, the Velspari, aquatic beings who navigated the world through sound and light. Now it was her cage, fashioned by the Celestial Council after she dared to challenge their authority. Nesrin's webbed fingers traced patterns against the transparent prison wall. Her violet eyes, large and luminous in the gloom, stared out at the abandoned temple chamber. Schools of bioluminescent fish occasionally drifted past, her only visitors in these endless years. How long, she wondered, her voice sending ripples through the water around her. How many seasons have passed while the stars turned above? She no longer expected an answer. The guards had stopped coming after the first decade. The automated system still functioned, feeding her nutrients, filtering her water, keeping her alive but isolated. Her crime, advocating for Velspari independence from the council, had been deemed too dangerous to forgive but not serious enough to warrant execution. So she sang. She sang to maintain her sanity. She sang to remember who she was. She sang to send her thoughts beyond her prison, beyond her world, into the stars she had never seen but had always felt calling to her. And somewhere, somehow, Orion Tannhäuser heard her. The Wayfinder completed its prescribed mapping route, but Orion found himself reluctant to return to the Cartographers Guild. Instead, he plotted a course toward the source of the mysterious song, convincing himself it was merely professional curiosity. "Approaching Velspar system," announced the ship's interface. "Advisory: Velspar is classified as a protected ecosystem under Celestial Council Regulation 47B limited access permits required for orbit or landing." "Request temporary research permit," Orion responded, settling into the pilot's chair. "Authorization code Tannhäuser Theta 9. As the Wayfinder decelerated toward the shimmering blue sphere of Velspar, Orion reviewed what little information was available about the planet. Primarily ocean, with scattered archipelagos. Indigenous sentient species. The Velspari, an aquatic humanoid race known for their bioluminescent properties and complex sonic communication. "What the archives don't mention," he murmured, "is that they can sing across space." The ship established a stable orbit, and Orion began detailed scans of the planet's surface. The song grew clearer here, rising from a specific location in the southern hemisphere's deepest ocean trench. "Prepare exploratory submersible," he instructed the ship, "and fabricate environmental adapters for deep-sea conditions." "Warning," replied the interface. "Target depth exceeds standard safety parameters for human physiology. Override, compensate with enhanced pressure shielding." Hours later, Orion guided the small submersible through the midnight blue waters of Velspar. The deeper he descended, the stronger the song became, not just in his ears, but resonating through his body as if some part of him recognized its call. At 3,000 meters, his lights illuminated something that shouldn't exist so deep. A massive crystalline structure rising from the ocean floor, architectural rather than natural, with elegant spires and sweeping arches that defied the crushing pressure. "The abyssal spire," he whispered, recalling a footnote from the archives about Velsperry sacred sites. The song emanated from within, pulling him forward with an intensity that both thrilled and frightened him. Orion carefully navigated the submersible around the structure, searching for an entrance. Near the base, he discovered an opening, not a door precisely, but a section where the crystal seemed less dense, more permeable. After checking his environmental suit one final time, he initiated the submersible's lock cycle and emerged into the waters of Velspar. The pressure was immense, but his specialized suit held. Swimming with the aid of propulsion units, Orion approached the translucent wall. To his surprise, it yielded at his touch, allowing him to pass through like a membrane rather than a solid barrier. Inside, the water felt different, warmer, lighter, as if the normal laws of depth and pressure didn't fully apply. The song surrounded him now, vibrating through the water and into his bones. Following the sound, Orion navigated through corridors of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. The architecture was both alien and beautiful, organic curves, and precise geometric patterns working in harmony. In the heart of the spire, he found her. Suspended in a cylindrical chamber of clear material that wasn't quite glass, floated a female figure. Her skin was the deep cerulean of tropical waters, marked with luminescent patterns that shifted with her breathing. Long hair the color of ocean depths swirled around her as if caught in perpetual currents. When her eyes opened, brilliant violet and unmistakably intelligent, Orion felt as if he'd been struck. She regarded him with equal parts hope and caution. "Can you understand me?" Orion asked, his voice distorted by the water and his suit's translator. The figure didn't speak, but Orion felt a response form directly in his mind. "I am Nesrin. You heard my song across the void." "I'm Orion Tannhäuser," he replied, moving closer to her prison. "What is this place? Why are you held here?" "This was once our temple. Now it is my prison. I spoke against the Celestial Council's exploitation of our waters. For that, I was sentenced to solitude until the tides ceased to turn." Orion placed a gloved hand against the transparent wall of her cell. "How long have you been here?" "Time moves differently in the deep, perhaps 50 of your cycles." 50 years, he breathed, horrified, "and no one's come for you." "My people were forbidden to speak my name, to remember I existed." Sadness radiated from her thoughts. The Council has powerful ways of ensuring obedience. Something about her struck a chord in Orion's memory. Stories his grandmother had told him of the early days of space exploration, of worlds and peoples subjugated under the guise of protection. "The song, your song, I've never heard anything like it. How could I hear it across such distances?" Nesrin's luminescent patterns pulsed brighter. "Some souls are attuned to frequencies others cannot perceive. You heard because you were meant to hear." A low rumble vibrated through the structure, and Nesrin's expression shifted to alarm. "Council sentinels patrol these waters. You must go, or you will join me in imprisonment." "I can't just leave you here," Orion protested. "You must, but if your heart is true, perhaps you will find a way to return." Her fingers spread against the inside of her prison, aligning with his on the outside. "Remember the song, Orion Tannhäuser. It will guide you back to me." As warning lights flashed on his suit display, Orion reluctantly backed away. "I will return," he promised. "I don't know how yet, but I will find a way." Nesrin's sad smile followed him as he swam rapidly back to his submersible. As he ascended through the dark waters toward the surface, her song followed him, fainter now but unmistakable. A beacon, a plea, a promise. In the vastness of space above Velspar, Orion Tannhäuser plotted a course back to the Cartographers Guild's central hub, his mind racing with plans. He had mapped countless worlds, charted the paths between stars, but never had he undertaken a mission like the one now forming in his heart. Somewhere below, in the crushing depths of an ocean world, violet eyes stared upward, and a song of hope echoed through the water. The Cartographers Guild headquarters on Meridian Station hummed with activity as Orion made his way through the crowded central atrium. Holographic star charts swirled around specialists deep in discussion, while apprentice cartographers hurried between departments with data crystals clutched in their hands. Orion barely noticed any of it. For the past 2 weeks since returning from Velspar, Nesrin's song had lived in his mind, sometimes at the edge of his consciousness, sometimes overwhelming all other thoughts. He tried to focus on filing his reports on routine tasks, but her violet eyes haunted him. "Tannhäuser," a voice called, breaking through his reverie. "You look like you're mapping black holes without a shield." Orion turned to find Petra Nagali, his longtime colleague and friend, studying him with concern. Her gold-flecked eyes, a trademark of her Centaurian heritage, narrowed suspiciously. "I'm fine," he said automatically, "just preoccupied." "With your unauthorized detour to Velspar," Petra's voice dropped lower. "The guild director's been asking questions. You filed an incomplete report." Orion glanced around, then guided Petra toward a quieter alcove near the quantum archives. "I couldn't include everything I found, not officially." "Orion," Petra began, her expression warning. "There's someone imprisoned there, Petra, has been for 50 years. The Celestial Council is keeping her captive for speaking against them." The words tumbled out, urgent and hushed. Petra's eyes widened. "You actually made contact with a Velsperi. They're supposed to be highly reclusive." "Her name is Nesrin," Orion said, and just speaking her name seemed to make the song in his mind clearer. "She's being held in some kind of crystalline prison deep in the ocean, and somehow, I don't know how, I could hear her singing across space." "That's," Petra hesitated, "improbable." "I know what I heard." Orion ran a hand through his silver-streaked hair. "The cartographer modifications to my auditory system must have made me sensitive to her frequency." Petra studied him for a long moment. "What are you planning, Orion? Because that look in your eyes tells me you're plotting something monumentally ill-advised." Before he could answer, a soft chime sounded throughout the atrium, followed by an announcement. "Cartographer Tannhäuser, please report to Director Vance's office immediately." "Perfect timing," Orion muttered. "Cover for me if I don't come back." "That's not funny," Petra called after him as he strode toward the executive lift. Director Solana Vance was not known for patience or sentiment. A veteran cartographer who had mapped more dangerous territories than anyone in guild history, she had little tolerance for protocol violations or personal crusades. As Orion entered her office, he found her studying a three-dimensional model of the Velspar system. "Explain this," she said without preamble, gesturing to the rotating hologram. "Your submersible spent approximately 43 minutes inside a structure that doesn't appear in any of our official records." Orion took a deep breath. "I was investigating an anomalous signal. The structure appears to be a Velsperi temple or ceremonial site. And yet your report contains no details about this structure, nor any scans." The director's piercing gaze fixed on him. "This is uncharacteristically sloppy work, Tannhäuser." "I encountered technical difficulties," Orion lied, knowing it sounded weak. "The density of the surrounding water interfered with my equipment." Director Vance leaned back in her chair. "You've been with the Guild for 15 years. In that time, you've never filed an incomplete report, never deviated from mission parameters without reason." She tapped her fingers on the desk. "So why start now?" Orion weighed his options. The truth would likely end his career, but lies would only delay the inevitable. "The structure contains a prisoner," he said finally. "A Velsperi woman named Nesrin, held captive by order of the Celestial Council." Silence filled the room. The director's expression remained unreadable. "That's a serious accusation against our primary funding body, cartographer." Her voice was dangerously quiet. "It's the truth." Orion met her gaze steadily. "She's been imprisoned for 50 years for advocating Velsperi independence." Director Vance's fingers moved across her desk terminal, and the hologram shifted to display a security recording. Orion in the archives, accessing restricted files on Velspar governance and Celestial Council detention protocols. "Your security clearance doesn't cover these materials," she noted. "Care to explain?" "I need to know how to free her," Orion said simply. The director stood, walking slowly to the viewport that overlooked the endless stars. "The Celestial Council's relationship with the Velsperi is complex. Their world is resource-rich, particularly in crystal formations that power our faster-than-light engines." So the Council keeps them subjugated for economic gain, Orion concluded bitterly. It's politically complicated, Vance replied, though something in her tone suggested she didn't entirely disagree. What I'm more interested in is how you detected this prisoner from orbit. According to your ship's logs, you diverted course based on an anomalous audio signal days before reaching Velspar. She sings, Orion said, knowing how it sounded. Somehow her voice travels through space. I could hear it, feel it from light years away. Vance turned back to him, her expression thoughtful. There are old stories about the Velspari, legends that their songs once guided the first wave of explorers through treacherous star clusters. Most dismiss them as myths. They're not myths, Orion leaned forward. Director, I have to go back, I promised her. And throw away your career, your life, Vance shook her head. The Council doesn't forgive interference in their affairs. With respect, Director, I didn't become a cartographer to ignore what I find, especially not injustice. A long silence followed. Finally, Director Vance sighed. You're confined to Meridian Station pending a full investigation into your unauthorized activities on Velspar. Surrender your ship access codes. Orion's heart sank, but he complied, transferring his codes to the Director's terminal. Is that all, Director? Vance studied him for a moment longer. If I were planning something foolish, hypothetically speaking, I would remember that the secondary hangar undergoes security maintenance tonight. Systems will be offline from 200 to 400 hours. Her expression remained neutral. That will be all, Cartographer Tannhäuser. Confused, but with a spark of hope, Orion left the office. In the corridor outside, he nearly collided with Petra, who appeared to have been waiting for him. Well, she demanded, are you fired? Confined to station, he replied, still processing the director's cryptic message. But I think she just gave me a window to leave. Petra groaned. Of course she did. Solana Vance was a rebel in her day, broke half the guild regulations mapping the Osiris Rift. She grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a quieter corridor. You're really going back for this Velspari woman? I have to. Orion ran a hand over his face. You didn't see her, Petra, 50 years alone in that crystal cage, and when she connected with my mind. Connected with your mind? You didn't mention telepathy before. Petra's eyes widened. The Velspari are supposed to be telepathic only with their own kind. Orion paused, considering this new information. Maybe that's why I could hear her song across space. Maybe there's some connection. Or maybe you've finally cracked from all those solo mapping missions, Petra muttered, but her tone was affectionate. What's your plan? Steal a guild vessel and blast your way into an underwater prison guarded by Council sentinels. More or less, Orion admitted, though ideally with less blasting. Petra sighed deeply. You'll need help. Guild vessels are tracked. You'll need a scrambler for the transponder codes. She reached into her pocket, pulling out a small device. Take this, and meet me in my quarters at 100 hours. If you're going to commit career suicide, at least do it properly equipped. In Petra's quarters later that night, Orion found not just his friend, but an array of equipment spread across her table. Specialized underwater gear, compact tools designed for crystal manipulation, and encrypted communication devices. Called in some favors, Petra explained, seeing his surprise. The guild isn't monolithic. Some of us remember when the cartographers were explorers first, bureaucrats second. Orion picked up one of the devices. This is military grade. My brother serves in the Outer Colony's defense force, she replied with a shrug. He owed me for covering up his escapades on Rigel IV. She handed Orion a small data crystal. This contains everything I could find on Velspari physiology and cultural practices. Not much. The Council restricts research, but better than nothing. Petra, I can't ask you to risk. You didn't ask, she interrupted, and I'm not coming with you. Someone needs to stay here and run interference. She smiled wryly. Besides, I've got 3 years until retirement benefits fully vest. At precisely 200 hours, Orion made his way to the secondary hangar. As the director had implied, the security systems were offline for maintenance, allowing him to board a small research vessel without triggering alarms. With Petra's scrambler installed, he launched into the void, setting course for Velspar. Throughout the journey, Nesrin's song grew stronger in his mind. Sometimes it seemed to guide him, helping him navigate the treacherous ionic fields that surrounded the Velspar system. By the time he achieved orbit, Orion was certain There was some inexplicable connection between them, something that transcended ordinary communication. I'm coming back, just as I promised, he thought. Talek's quarters aboard the research station Artemis were sparse and functional, yet every available surface was covered with star charts, sketches, and notes. 7 years had passed since Meridius, 7 years of fragmented memories and haunting dreams that left him drenched in sweat, reaching for someone who wasn't there. He sat cross-legged on his bed, studying his latest sketch, a spiraling structure rising from an ocean floor. His hands had drawn it without conscious thought during the night, adding intricate swirling patterns along its surface. Computer, cross-reference these symbols with known xenolinguistic databases, he commanded, holding up the drawing. No exact matches found, the AI responded. Closest similarity, deep-sea inscriptions documented on Meridius Sector 12. Talek's heart raced. Sector 12, where he'd been injured, where 3 days of his memory had been violently torn away before emergency evacuation. The sector now under strict quarantine by the Interstellar Alliance after the mysterious attack 7 years ago. He accessed his personal files, finding fragmented mission logs. Most were corrupted, but one entry remained intact. Discovered artificial structure at coordinates 42.896 by 117.332. Further investigation warranted. Another memory flash struck him. Silver violet eyes, a telepathic voice, a promise made. Navira, he whispered, the name striking him like lightning. Navira in the crystal spire, the woman I promised to save. Horror washed over him. I've left her there for 7 years. His hand trembled as he touched the scar running from his temple to his jawline, a permanent reminder of the explosion that had nearly killed him during the evacuation from Meridius. The medical team had told him the blast caused significant temporal lobe damage, memories possibly lost forever. But they weren't lost, merely buried, and now they were resurfacing with increasing clarity. Each night over the past months, the dreams had grown more vivid, swimming through crystal hallways, feeling water that somehow allowed him to breathe, and always those eyes watching him, waiting for him. At first, he'd attributed them to trauma, but now he understood. They weren't dreams, but memories fighting to return. Talek pulled out a small metal container from beneath his bed and opened it reverently. Inside lay a fragment of crystalline material he'd kept hidden from his superiors, a piece of the spire that had somehow remained attached to his pressure suit during his escape. It hummed faintly when he touched it, as if acknowledging his presence. "Show me," he whispered to it, pressing it between his palms. The crystal warmed, and suddenly his quarters dissolved around him. He found himself standing once more before the cylindrical tank, Navira's purple hand pressed against the glass across from his own. "The High Council will return soon," her voice echoed in his memory. "They keep me alive because my genetic code contains secrets they still hope to extract. My people evolved to manipulate crystalline structures with our minds. We built cities of living crystal before the war corrupted everything." Another fragment. "If you truly mean to return, find the Whispering Reef on Thalasha. Seek Indari with the emerald skin. She was once my sister before the council divided us. Tell her you've heard Navira's song." The vision faded, leaving Talek gasping for breath, his hands burning where they'd clutched the crystal. He'd made a promise and failed to keep it, but it wasn't too late. The coordinates Navira had telepathically shared remained burned into his mind, hidden from the emergency medical scans that had wiped portions of his memory for security reasons. He now understood why the Alliance had quarantined Meridius. They feared the crystal technology. Such power could shift the balance between worlds, especially in wartime. Talek rose quickly and began gathering essential items into a travel pack. His position as xenobiologist consultant granted him certain freedoms, but returning to Meridius would require resources beyond his reach. He needed to find this Indari on Thalasha first. The door chimed, interrupting his preparations. "Enter," he called, hastily covering his star charts with standard research papers. Jorith Ven entered, his ruby-red skin glistening under the artificial lights. As the station's security chief, Ven's unexpected visits usually meant trouble. "Planning a trip, Voros?" Ven asked, his 4 eyes scanning the half-packed bag on the bed. "Research expedition to Thalasha," Talek replied smoothly. The aquatic flora there shares remarkable similarities with specimens we recovered from Meridius before the quarantine. I've been authorized to collect comparative samples. Ven's upper eyes narrowed. Funny, I didn't see a travel requisition cross my desk. Just submitted it this morning. Standard procedure allows 3 days for security clearance. Ven moved to the desk, casually examining the papers there. You've been asking questions, Voros, questions about Meridius, about what really happened 7 years ago. Simply trying to fill in gaps in my research. Trauma-induced memory loss is frustrating. Talek forced a casual smile. The scientific mind abhors incomplete data. Some gaps are better left unfilled. Ven picked up a sketch showing the crystal spire. Some discoveries weren't meant for human understanding. A chill ran down Talek's spine. Are you speaking officially, Chief Ven? Consider it friendly advice. The Alliance didn't quarantine Meridius on a whim. What lies beneath those waters is dangerous, beyond dangerous. Ven set down the sketch. Your travel requisition will be denied, by the way. Direct orders from Central Command. No personnel with prior Meridius experience are permitted within 3 systems of that planet. After Ven departed, Talek sat motionless, processing this new obstacle. They knew something, perhaps everything, about what he'd found, about Navira, and they were determined to keep her imprisoned. That night, Talek dreamed more vividly than ever before. Navira's presence reached across the void between stars, her telepathic voice weakened but determined. I still wait in darkness, did you forget? No, he whispered into the empty room upon waking. I'm coming back whatever it takes. The next morning, Talek submitted his resignation from the research station, citing psychological effects from his injuries. His supervisor seemed relieved rather than surprised, further confirmation that someone had been watching him, waiting for him to remember. 2 weeks later, he arrived at Thalash's orbital station under a false identity. The ocean world shimmered below, its vast coral reefs visible even from space as colorful patches within turquoise seas. The Whispering Reef proved difficult to locate. Most locals denied its existence or refused to discuss it. It wasn't until Talek ventured into a dimly lit establishment in the floating city of Nereus that he found a lead. An ancient mariner with weather-beaten skin leaned close after Talek slipped him several credit chips. The Whispering Reef appears only during the triple moon convergence, when the tides pull back to reveal what normally remains hidden. 2 nights from now, seek the eastern shallows where the black coral grows. On the appointed night, Talek rented a small vessel and navigated to the coordinates. As the 3 moons aligned overhead, the water receded dramatically, revealing an expansive reef structure that emitted a soft, musical humming. The coral formations resembled the crystalline patterns from his sketches. He followed the intensifying sound to a secluded grotto hidden beneath an arch of glowing coral. There, seated on a throne of living crystal, waited a slender figure with skin the color of deep emerald. Intricate patterns similar to Navira's markings adorned her arms and face, though weathered by time and sorrow. You have heard my sister's song, Indari said before Talek could speak, her voice carrying the same melodic quality he remembered from Navira's telepathic communication. I have felt your dreams across the void. I made a promise to free her, Talek replied, but I failed. I need your help to return to Meridius. Indari's eyes, emerald with flecks of gold, studied him intently. The council imprisoned my sister for speaking truth, that our gift was meant to create, not destroy. They feared her vision of peace would undermine their conquest. She rose from her throne, towering over him by nearly a foot. For 7 cycles, I have waited for the one who would return with my sister's song in their mind. The crystals have shown me your arrival. Will you help me reach her? Talek asked. Indari nodded solemnly. I will do more than that. I will show you how to free her. From her flowing robes, she produced a crystal similar to the fragment Talek had kept, but larger and pulsing with inner light. This is a heartstone. It resonates with the crystal spire that holds Navira. Together, we will call to her across the stars, strengthen her fatting power, and prepare for your return. As Talek took the crystal, visions flooded his mind. A ship hidden among the asteroid fields beyond Thalash's orbit, a passage through unpatrolled space, and Navira's prison glowing in response to the Heartstone's call. The path ahead would be dangerous, possibly fatal. But as the triple moons cast their light upon the Whispering Reef, Talek made his choice. "Teach me everything," he said to Indari. "I'm ready to fulfill my promise. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. 3.7 Sonnet."